So we're really excited about it. So welcome, thank you for coming. Real quick, Joe McGovern, president of the Business Development Guild. I mentioned I also have a environmental consulting company, the McGovern Group here in Phoenix. Our mission statement's pretty straightforward, always like to reiterate it, and that is to be the premier source of education, coaching, and support for the business development profession and for teams, not just for the BD profession, but also internal teams. One thing I'd like to emphasize here is that I know that Jesse and a couple others and just an ongoing conversation about what we're trying to do here, and that is really be an education organization. There are a number of other organizations that go to look for the latest, what's coming up on the dock in terms of RFPs and such, but we're really focusing on being the education and coaching support. So we're really focused on that mission. Quick kudos to our Southern California co-presidents, Kari Knowles of the DLR Group and Kim Bradley of Land Science and Regenesis. Thank you for your leadership and stepping up. We do have sponsorship opportunities from chapter and for meetings. We'd like to thank our ongoing technology sponsor, LMI 360. You guys met Ed Ritter. He is the founder of that company, an outside sales and marketing company. Let me just say one of the first 3 members of the BD Guild, a little bit of who came first, but I will just say the top 3, but also on our advisory board. So thank you to Ted and thanks for LMI 360 for hosting our technology. Okay, just our objectives. We talked about the BD profession, but we're really helping to bring teams to become better aligned and be more effective in their business development efforts. We do that through meetings such as this and our education programs throughout the year. And we're really seeking to help teams maximize their return on their BD investment. And overall, elevate the profession, advance the profession, have a place for the profession to go and be represented. It is a membership organization. It's the lifeblood. All of our members, we really appreciate it. It allows us to put these programs on an ongoing basis and also come up with new ones throughout as we have planned over the next year or 2. So if you're not a member and have interest, we'd love to talk to you. There's information on our website, businessdevelopmentguild.com. You can join, you can renew. But if there's any questions about that, we'd love to have a conversation. And for those that are members, thank you greatly. We really appreciate that. Number of opportunities to get involved. Right now we have 3 chapters, which we're excited about. Obviously, Southern California is bringing this meeting today. We started in Phoenix, Arizona, and just this year, we started in Denver, Colorado. We are having conversations and folks in other markets. So if you know folks or happen to be there in other markets that we're not in, we'd love to have a conversation about that as well. Something that we're really proud of, and that is our professional business developer curriculum. This is our 4th year. There was a fun little comment because we used to be the certified business developer, but we just couldn't take being the CBDs anymore. So we changed it this year, but it's the same curriculum. This year, we are live streaming and we're on our last module, which is November 17th, 2020, next month. But you can attend that and kind of get that module under your belt because we will continue that into next year. We have a great class from multiple states. So if you have any questions on that, again, please let us know. I'd love to have a conversation about that as well. We are blessed to have a wonderful leadership team in Southern California, our BD Guild Southern California Advisory Board. Everyone's bringing terrific insight in their experience and their network, so thank you. Any questions? I think let me just reach out to any single one of them. I'm sure they would love to have, to tell you more about the BD Guild. I just want to say thank each one of them as well for bringing their energy and insights to the organization. All right, I'll turn it over to Kari. Quick shout, our next workshop, this is going to be brought by you might have seen announcements for this, by the Phoenix chapter. And, you know, a number of our meetings, I'd probably say most of our meetings are kind of larger macro conceptual type topics and discussions. We do like to bring tangible walk-away value to each one of our meetings as well. But on November 10th, Phoenix is bringing something that's really hands-on, and that is just basically a workshop of creating a business development plan. If we have one question that we get in terms of, hey, did anybody have an example of a business development plan? So a couple of folks from the Burns and McDonnell office here in Phoenix are going to be leading that. And the idea there is to walk away with a template of a business development plan. So strategic planning 101. We do have sponsors for this meeting, so we appreciate Atmosphere Commercial Interiors and Steelcase. So thank you to them. Information we're going to be sending more announcements about this, but it is on the website and you can register. So it's something a little bit different, but so far we've had wonderful response. So take a look. Okay, Kari, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, yay. I'm really glad. Let me stop sharing this. And then, like I said, Kari, this is a little bit of your brainchild on this one. So thank you for your thoughts and bringing the team together. And with that, let me turn it over to the co-president of the Southern California chapter, Kari Knowles of the DLR Group. Kari, go ahead.
Thank you very much. B, you can go ahead and start to share your screen as well. Again, my name is Kari Knowles. I'm with DLR Group, and my current position is actually business development leader for K through 12 and in the state of California. That's the region that I hold. Our company is actually 1,200 people, international, lots of offices all over the place, but the region of California is where I currently am working on the K-12 department. I've actually worked in quite a bit of the educational department in all aspects of the industry. I actually started out as a math teacher. I have a bachelor's degree in secondary education, got in the classroom with 7th and 8th graders and a couple of 12th graders and decided, well, you know, this might not quite be the job for me. Although I still love working with kids, I still coach my kids' soccer teams and things like that. I just found another passion. That led me to actually UCLA. I got a master's in architecture at UCLA because where I was teaching in a lot of underprivileged school districts. And it just led me to believe that there's a better environment where students can learn and grow. And so I got a master's in architecture at UCLA, and kind of the rest is history. I've actually worked in different market sectors all across, but my focus has obviously always been education. But I have worked as an architect. I've worked as the contractor, the construction manager. I've actually been the owner. I've been a facilities director for a school district. And now I'm actually back to architecture where I started out in my career. So the blessing that I've had is that I've actually seen projects on the operational side from all aspects of it. So that's what led me to business development being a good facet for me, is the ability to see things from different perspectives and then bring that to the table to bring people together, align perspectives, align agendas, and finish the project the way it was always intended. So I'm fortunate in my situation. I want to thank Business Development Guild for actually giving me an opportunity to speak about something that's been on my mind for a while. I think we've all been in the situation for quite some time now of just depressing news on the TV, you know, changes quickly that we just have to adjust to. We don't really have control of it. And we're just feeling like, you can see on the screen here, we got to recognize our environment. It's very unpredictable right now, and that can bring us down. It's out of your control. A lot of times for some people, the business is a lot slower. It's harder to get some business going in your business development role. But for some strange reason, it's actually faster because we have to work harder. So there's this dichotomy going on that as well without the control that just leads us to this oftentimes can lead us to panic mode. We have to work from home. I have 3 children and I have to work from home, and it's challenging as a single father to be able to do what I need to do and get out and meet with people, but also be able to make sure my kids are online appropriately. And obviously there's distractions when you work from home as well. I think you all know what I'm talking about. So anyways, everything is a lot more challenging. Everything's a lot harder. There's an unknown future. We're supposed to be able to predict the future. We're supposed to be able to meet with clients, get the projects, make the relationships, and no problem. We have work in the future. We have a backlog, no problem. That's not the case anymore. But why isn't it? Why can't we predict our future? Why can't we take this opportunity to figure out ways that we can manipulate ourselves and our system to be able to do what we know we can do best? We're all business development to some extent, some more than others, but we've had that ability for all these years to predict our future, and for some reason we feel like we can't right now. Well, actually we can, and that's what we want to talk about today in this process. Next slide. This is some of the stuff that we've seen out there that can actually lead us to the success I'm talking about. Attitude is a lot of it. 99% attitude, 1% aptitude. That's one thing you've always heard about. Attitude is everything. Life is 10% of what you make it, 90% how you take it. So these are things that you've seen a lot of times, I'm sure, in your career, but how much are you applying it now? Now that the chips are down, now that things are a lot tougher, how much are you applying your attitude to the success of your future? Next slide. So we're just going to kick it off really quickly with a video that kind of get the juices flowing. Again, this is something that it's difficult to face right now because it feels like things are down, but really we have the ability to bring it up and make sure that things are working in our future the way we want to. Let's go ahead and watch this presentation, this slide.
I'm just gonna set that up for you, Kari, with sound.
Yep. And please, as you're listening to this, I'll be honest, the presenter you're about to see can be controversial at times, but we're gonna focus on the message that he's presenting today, not other stuff that has been controversial. I don't sing, so you're gonna have to pick this up.
I'm trying to make sure you can hear it.
I can sing, but you guys don't want to hear that.
In your life. Your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. Feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, and we can remember experiences better because we remember how they feel. Yeah. So most people wake up in the morning and they start remembering all their problems, and those problems are connected to certain people and certain things at certain times and places. The moment they start thinking about those problems, they're thinking in the past. Those problems have an emotion associated with them, and the moment they start feeling those emotions, the body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between an experience that's creating an emotion and the emotion the person's fabricating by thought alone. Now, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So most people's entire state of being, when they start their day, is already in the past. So you have a choice. The choice is, you're either defined by a vision of the future, or you're defined by the memories of the past. And when you say, okay, I'm going to change, and you decide one thing, I'm not going to eat this food, I'm going to wake up earlier, I'm going to do something aerobic, I'm not going to have sugar after 6 o'clock, whatever it is, the person, whatever choice a person makes, the moment you make a choice to do something differently, and the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before, get ready, because it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty and unpredictability, and that's the moment the game is on. Yes. So then most people, their body has been conditioned emotionally to be the mind. So the body says, wow, I'd rather hang on to my guilt than take a chance in possibility. I'd rather live in fear than trust in the unknown. So once the person feels uncomfortable, the body goes, whoa, wait a second, we're out of the program here, and body starts influencing the mind.
That's right.
So it says, start tomorrow, you'll never change, you don't have the money to do this, you're not good enough, your mother told you were this, your father's fault, it's your ex's fault, you know, all of the voices that come up. Now here's the deal, if you respond to those voices, those same thoughts as if they're true, by the way, they're always going on behind the scenes of your awareness, but now they're amplified because you're outside your comfort zone. You believe in that thought's going to lead to the same choice, which is going to lead to the same behavior, which is going to create the same experience and produce the same emotion, and the person's going to say, this feels right. No, that feels familiar. Going from the old self to the new self is a neurological, it's a biological, it's a chemical, it's a hormonal, it's a genetic death of the old self. And people will say to me, in that void, in that unknown, I can't predict my future. And I'll say to them, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Not from the known, but from the unknown.
I love it.
So close your eyes now and think about that vision. Once you start thinking about that vision of your future, you're activating the creative centers in your brain. And naturally, you begin to think about putting yourself in the scene.
Yes.
And the act of doing that, when you're truly passionate and truly present, the moment you're defined by that vision, when the thought in your mind becomes the experience, you begin to feel the emotion of the event before it's made manifest. Now, you're giving your body a sampling, a taste of the future. And now, if a thought and a feeling create a new state of being, you're combining a clear intention with an elevated emotion, and now you're beginning to change your biology, and you're seeing a whole new landscape that you could never see before, because you're no longer viewing your future through the lens of the past.
Perfect. It even says tag a friend at the end. I love that. So what is your vision today? Not in the past, not even what I said 10 minutes ago. That's all in the past. What's your vision for the future? Why is it different from before COVID till now? We as business development leaders, I feel that we're cheerleaders. We are the ones who are supposed to inspire others to reach the goals of the business and personally reach our goals. So we have to make sure that we stay focused on our mentality and our abilities and our vision to make sure that we're always focusing on the future. And we have to know our past. I'm not going to lie, but we have to know our history so that we can know the steps to get to the next step. But more so as business development leaders, I feel that our job is to be focused on the future and be focused on our goals and making sure we're reaching those goals accordingly. Next slide. So a couple things that we would get there. Manifest starts with getting back to balance. Positive, negative. How are you going to balance those two things? Optimism, pessimism. Obviously, we're talking a lot about optimism in this presentation, but you have to recognize what's also happening in order to get to that future. Attitude, aptitude is another thing we've talked about. And the last one is action versus reaction, which B is going to get into a little bit as well. So as we look at these different ways of getting back to balance and manifesting our future, remember, biz development leaders, we are the cheerleaders. We have to be able to step up to our entire company and step up to the energy and say, look, even though things are tough, even though things have been bad in the past, how are we as a group going to make sure that we reach our future and reach our goals? So we're going to give you some tips on how to do that. Lucky you. So back to balance, I want to introduce you to B. Sanborn. She's with DLR Group as well. She's an environmental psychologist that works with our company. We're fortunate enough to have the resources to have various people within our company that have various skill sets. That brings diversity, not just in color, but also in experiences and knowledge. So this diversity brings such a value to our company, and B has been there the whole time to get there. So I'm going to pass it on to her and let her explain to you a little bit more about getting us back to balance and manifesting our future business. B?
Thanks, Kari. I am really excited to be here with you all today and appreciate the BD Guild for inviting me, even though I'm not formally a BD person. As Kari has reminded me, we're all business development people. We're all building relationships. Like Kari said, I'm a psychologist and an anthropologist, so my background is in social science, and what I focus on is the learning and interactions between people, especially in the built environment, but all kinds of ways that we interact with one another and how that makes us feel. So for my part of this presentation today, I get to talk about feelings, very classic psychologist tactic here. One thing that I think has been really helpful for me and my friends, family, and colleagues during this entire year, frankly, is to remember that we all have feelings. And when things are uncertain or changing rapidly on us, those feelings get heightened. That's okay, that's normal. We also have reactions to those feelings. That's really what we're in charge of. So while our feelings are real and we're having them, there's no sense in trying to shut them out or deny them or squish them down somewhere into some weird part of our body. But we can take a pause and learn to use some tools to think about how we react to those feelings, how we get back in balance. And as Joe said, actually, I really like the phrase Joe used, is like, what's going to make us feel aligned and effective, personally and with the rest of our team. I'm going to share with you today 3 concepts that are going to come up when you hear from Natasha and Jason about their stories, but also really invite you to think about them in your own work life and your personal life. So start thinking about how we get back in sync and have the reactions that are going to help us be aligned and be effective in our work. So these 3 concepts for balance, out of the many that I could talk about today, are some core concepts from psychology that can help us understand our feelings and our reactions and start to take back some of the control over those if we've lost it because of being thrown off by the world around us. I hope you'll listen to each of these concepts and watch out for them in the stories you're going to hear and think about how they show up in your own life. Throughout the whole presentation, the theme is really balance. Our minds and bodies are trying to stay in balance, and when we go too far in either direction on any one of these, we're going to feel off kilter, and we're going to expend energy that we don't necessarily need to expend. So we're going to talk about the window of tolerance, then something called your locus of control, And finally, we're going to talk about my favorite, which is tolerance for ambiguity. The first concept here, the window of tolerance, is one that I think really helps us understand a lot of our reactions to anything that might happen to us throughout the day. Right here, I want to dispel one myth that I hear very often, and that in Dr. Dispenza's video, he talks about this relationship that some people don't necessarily take into account, and that's that we are a mind and a body working together. They're not separate things where one is at war with the other or trying to help the other. They're one and the same. The same blood flows through your body and your brain, the same chemicals, hormones, nerves, they go through your whole system. So taking care of your body is taking care of your mind, and vice versa. And this really shows up in what's called your window of tolerance. I promise this is the only big nerdy graph I'm going to show today. This is a diagram, not by me, but by this author listed down below, of your window of tolerance. These are 3 zones that all of us operate in, and that center one is the zone of tolerance. This is where we're functional, we're effective and aligned, open-minded, and we feel really present and in control. This is a nice balanced state, and our body works to keep us here by making hormones and regulating our system, digesting food, and doing all these million little tasks that just keep us balanced. This is where our body and mind want to be because it's healthy, it's efficient, and it's how we carry on all our normal functions like sleeping and eating and exploring the world and having great relationships. Surprisingly, however, a lot of us, especially those with high stress jobs, lots of travel, or very busy schedules, which I heard some of you talking about when I popped on, a lot of us don't realize how often we are going outside our zone of tolerance in one direction or the other. The feeling becomes so normal that we kind of assign blame for feeling crappy to other sources, like maybe I just didn't eat right today, or maybe if the weather had been better, I wouldn't feel this way. But when that's every day, maybe something's up. And we can actually take on some what we call maladaptive coping strategies, like bickering unnecessarily, maybe eating too much or too little, sleeping, getting a little passive aggressive, all those favorite things that you love in your friends and colleagues. Most importantly, we often decide that the ups and downs are beyond our control, but they're not. We can expand our window of tolerance, and we can notice when we're out of it to get back into it. So when we spike up into a highly aroused state where we feel anxious or angry, that fight or flight mode, we can then just as suddenly dip down into this low arousal state where we feel really numb, really bummed out, nothing matters, and we can't make decisions. Going back and forth between those two is exhausting. So what we want to do is notice when the stressors are piling up on us. Spend some time understanding which of those we can control, and then making a decision to take some action that's actually going to make this middle zone bigger so we can handle those ups and downs a little better. So while everyone hits this point and gets out of balance as part of being human, the goal is really to keep it to a minimum so you feel good and not worn out, and you can identify and make choices about where you're going to move, use your resources to move back toward that healthy middle. So it probably goes without saying, but keeping your body fed and rested and getting some healthy movement is a key part of keeping all of this working well. So what do we do when we are thrown out of frame? The first thing is to stop. It's actually really hard to notice that moment where you're getting out of your zone of tolerance, but it's a real feeling and everyone goes through it. The key is noticing that it's happening, which takes practice, and learning to feel what those signs are for you, that you're ramping up into anxiety mode or shutting down into passive mode. Maybe you start avoiding eye contact. Maybe you start cracking your knuckles and drumming your finger. Maybe you have the urge to snack, even if you're not hungry. Or you feel your breath is like only happening right up here in your chest and your throat is really tight. All of these things are flags that you're headed in one direction or the other. So you could start looking back on your day at the end of each day and think about when you have had an experience like this where you got a little bit snappy or a little bit shut down. What was going on? What seemed out of character for you? What kind of feelings were you having? You can also ask some of your colleagues or trusted friends about this. I know my partner has helped me understand the signs when I'm getting a little hangry, and I appreciate. So second is stay positive. When you notice this is happening, negative self-talk is only going to unbalance you more. So saying, why do I always do this? Gosh, I'm so stupid. I'm letting my emotions run away with me. That's not going to help. The main thing you want to do is say, congratulations, B. You're getting out of frame and you noticed it, and that's the first step. Thanks for paying attention. This is the hardest part, so congratulate yourself for it. Then third, you're going to remember, I'm in charge here. A lot of things may be beyond my control, but I live in a relatively safe world. There are people who want to take care of me, and I'm in charge of how I react to this. So go ahead, body, have some feelings, but I'm going to pick how I react and act on those feelings. So before we go into the rest of the presentation, we're actually going to do a little exercise together. This is one of the things that you can do when you start feeling pushed to the edges of your zone of tolerance, maybe at work, maybe at home. And it comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, those are a set of tools that we can use to actually start reprogramming, if that's the right word you want to use. As Dr. Dispenza said, start rehearsing those reactions so that we can change our behavior in the future when something similar happens. So I'm going to invite you to do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding with me. This is intended to get you back in touch with your body and your sensory system, because those senses really shut down when we go out of our zone. Stress can make us feel really disconnected from our physical selves. So you can do this when you're stressed, but I also like to just do it when I'm taking a break, just to reconnect with myself. And this is also really great to do with kids if they're getting a little swirly, as my K-12 friends say. The first thing I would like you to do is just take note wherever you are of 5 things that you can see that are blue. Just look around for 5 blue things. You don't have to say anything, but you might think about whether or not you like that blue thing, dislike it, have no real feelings about it. Just make yourself a little list of 5. The second thing I'd like you to do, and you can close your eyes if that helps you at this point, is think about 4 things you can feel. It might be the temperature of the room you're in, might be the texture of something you're wearing or a hot cup of tea. But just make that little list of 4 things that you can feel right now. I'm going to move on through and add in 3 things you can hear. Take out one of your earbuds if that helps. Notice 3 sounds coming to you from somewhere in your environment. Going to get a little more difficult and say 2 things you can smell. You might have to reach out and grab something that you can smell. Hopefully they're pleasant smells. And the last one is 1 thing that you can taste. I'm going to use my tea, and if you have something at hand, maybe you take a sip of it. And I'm just going to invite you to take a nice big breath in through your nose. And just breathe the whole day out like a big sigh. I don't know about you, but it's evening here in Chicago. And I am happy to be out of work mode and kind of back in touch with the rest of my body. So now that we're all here together, the other 2 things that you can listen for when we're talking through these stories tonight and chatting later is one idea called your locus of control. Simply put, your locus of control is your internal belief, probably mostly unconscious, about what determines outcomes for you and for others, and what impact your choices and actions have on situations in your life, and where that power to influence the world lives. This is something that a lot of people struggle with when things get really uncertain or unpredictable, and we tend to go towards either end of the spectrum. Now remember, both ends of the spectrum can make us feel out of balance, so we're going to try to find balance between these two loci. The first is an external locus of control. When you're feeling like this and you're pushed too far in this direction, you may find yourself thinking things like, why is this happening to me? I have really bad luck. If XYZ would just stop happening, or so-and-so would just stop doing this and that, then everything would be better. If it weren't for fill in the blank, if it just wasn't for this, I would be back on track. Sometimes it's a healthy recognition. You could say, wow, that was unexpected and it was out of my control. Guess I'm going to be okay with that. But external locus of control, when it's weighing on us too much, it lets us place the blame on everything outside of our reach. And it also takes away our power. It makes us feel like we don't have a lot of influence in the world. On the flip side, an internal locus of control, which is typically what a lot of us could move a little more towards, depending on how we've been raised, but a lot of people could take a few steps in this direction, and that might bring them into more balance in their lives. An internal locus of control says, the power to change this resides within me. My actions have an impact on the world. I can control something in this situation, and I'm going to do that. I can't do much, but I can do this. Maybe I could try this small change and see if that helps me get back on track. I can't control what that person is doing, but I can control how I react to them. That's one that I have to remember a lot during COVID, frankly. But when we're pushed too far in this direction, we might find ourselves constantly trying to fix everything, or feeling like this is all my fault. If only I had made different choices, if only I had done something different, things would be better. So you can kind of see and notice where the blame is falling and what it sounds like to be pushed too far to one end of the spectrum or the other, and where we want to kind of hit a healthy balance in the middle of recognizing what's outside our control, taking ownership of what is inside our control, maybe every once in a while reaching out to get a little more, see like, hey, maybe I can influence that over there. And the third concept we're going to talk about is our tolerance for ambiguity. This one, I can't stress enough how magical this can be if you strike the right balance for this one in your life. If I could help everyone work on one concept for 2020, both personally and professionally, it would be this: increasing our tolerance for ambiguity. Having a high tolerance for ambiguity or uncertainty is a personality trait that you might hear associated with explorers, astronauts, scientists, and very often entrepreneurs. But it also helps every one of us every day when we are trying to embrace a new situation, when we are trying to make progress, but the goals or the pathway are not clear. And even when we're trying to be more open-minded, when we're dealing with somebody who's very different than us or has a very different perspective than us. When we're intolerant of ambiguity, new situations and sudden changes cause us a lot of stress and anxiety. We might become very fixated or frustrated with somebody because they're not making themselves clear, or we can shut down entirely when we're faced with a new situation or new people. So again, thinking of this as a spectrum where we want to strike a healthy balance in the middle. When somebody is in a state where they're being very intolerant of ambiguity, it might sound like, I cannot handle one more surprise. I cannot handle one more change, no new stuff. Feeling very uncomfortable when things are strange or when you're asked to try something new. Seeing the world as very black and white. Taking a stance at the beginning and sticking to it no matter what new information comes your way. All of those are the sound of a mind that's pushed very, very far away from tolerance for ambiguity. Now, on the flip side, and Kari knows that I tend to be a little more toward this side of the spectrum. I'm a little what they call risk seeking. People who are very tolerant of ambiguity might constantly be distracted by new things because they prefer them over old things and things they're familiar with. They might be like, oh, what's that? I know we're doing this, but what's that over there? I find this new thing really interesting. Constantly feeling like you just need to do something different and see something different than what you see right now. Feeling a little throwing your hands up, like, hey, why bother? It's all going to change next week anyway. Getting distracted and not being able to complete things. I was working on this, but then I started learning about that. Or feeling like everything falls in a gray area. So while we want to be tolerant of ambiguity, especially in a time like this, getting pushed too far toward it can keep us from ever kind of completing our goals. And it can keep us constantly turning at the coolest new idea rather than picking something and sticking with it to see how it might manifest for us. So thinking through those three things, I want to tee up our next speaker here and hand it over. Be listening for things like knowing when you're getting pushed out of the zone of tolerance, having some tolerance for an uncertain situation or for an ambiguous situation, and then really knowing what is within your control to influence and what is outside your control, and it's time to make peace with that. And with that, I will click on over to one of our speakers.
Bea, thank you for that information. I think we can all relate to at least one piece, if not all pieces of what you just presented. The connection to each person is very important. As a former teacher, I do still study quite a bit of education, and knowing that different people learn in different ways and different styles, this is called a brain-based learning perspective. So we've already tapped into things that you know naturally, instinctually as a person. And now we're going to get into stuff that maybe you didn't know, maybe some interesting ideas that you can learn from. And so what we're doing right now is with the idea of intangible and tangible aspects of our future. So Bea, thank you so much for talking a little bit about the intangibles. I'd love to hear the stories of Natasha and Jason, who are going to lead us to more of the tangible aspects of how to get to your futures in this aspect. One of these people started their business when the chips were down, when the recession was full force. Still reached. Another presenter founded himself thriving in multiple businesses at the same time, so juggling lots of balls, but still reached his goal. So I think we can, again, relate to those different aspects of when the chips are down, how do you get to the finish line? When you're juggling different balls, how do you get to the finish line? So I want to introduce Natasha and Jason and let them present their stories and how they got there. Thank you.
Thank you. So am I going first, Kari?
Yes, please.
All righty. So hello, my name is Natasha Melendres-Knudsen. I am president and CEO of Project Support Services. We specialize in DSA compliance, legacy closeout, K through 12, and higher education. I feel very honored, but also I miss seeing everyone in person. This is so hard to do this with Zoom, but I'm learning to make it work and adjust. So a little bit about my story. As Kari said, I started my business back in 2008. And I really had to manifest of what did I want and how can I get the business to get myself out of the situation I was in. 24, working at a testing and inspection firm, no college degree, doing a certificate program at a local community college. Also, no business development background, no mentorship, divorcing my parents at 16 years old, so completely on my own. I had this calling and knew I wanted more. And I never forget it, the day I was in my car, my head was on the steering wheel and I was sobbing because I did not want to go back into that building. And I knew that there was something else out there for me, but I did not know how to get there at all. So I bring up all these challenges and struggles because everything that happened to me in that moment in 2008 is sort of feel like it's happening again. And I love what Bea talks about, how you go back and forth through all these emotions, and that's sort of life of an entrepreneur. I hope some entrepreneurs find that balance because I'm still working on it. But that day I was like, all right, I need to manifest what I want. And what is it that I want? It was something that was gonna make me happy. And making me happy was starting my own business, shockingly, even though I had no experience in it. And I said, you know what? I need to learn how to ask myself the right questions to get me there. So my first question was, where am I at right now? Like this season, this economy, what's going on? Starting a business during the housing crisis market. I'm 24 years old in an industry where there's many baby boomers that, how are they going to give me business? Where do I want to be? I was like, I want to solve problems. I want to be passionate about it. I want to help people. I want to help kids. I want to learn and grow into like why I was put on this earth. And then the biggest question came from it all was like, how the heck do I get there? So I literally spent many months just drawing things out and getting in a line with this very peaceful place inside of me that was starting to like hear these calm thoughts and ideas. And it was like DSA closeout, certification, like all these different ideas came. And finally, I just kept narrowing down like, okay, what is it that I can do? I can start a business on. And luckily, when you are in that calm place that B was talking about, where you're open and calm and all those great things, you can hear those voices and gut intuition that's telling you where to go. So it said, you need to start a closeout business. And I was like, okay, how am I going to do that? I'm not an architect. I'm not an engineer. How am I going to help school districts solve problems? And believe it or not, I wrote out all these ideas on how I was going to do it. And I tried one by one by one by one. Moving on to when I was 27 years old, I started getting recognition for knowing how to solve these problems that I became obsessed about. And then it was a time for me to jump and leave my company that I was working with. And I'll never forget it. The owner means well, and we're great friends today, but he said, you're uneducated, you're a minority, you're a woman in a man's world, and you're a woman in a man's industry. You have no business experience, and how are you going to do this? And I said, I have literally the open part, as B was saying, I have nothing to lose. I literally had nothing to lose. Wasn't married, no kids, $1,000 in my bank account. I had some bills. I said, I just come back work for you, right? And so that day I jumped and I started my business. And again, where was I at again? How am I going to get business? What am I going to do? So I started teaming with the right people, coming up with creative ideas. And where I'm at today is honestly everything that I could ever imagine and dreamed of. It scares me. It really scares me at times because I worked so hard to build this life that I am beyond excited to get out of bed every day for, that I truly do not do this for the money. I do this because like I'm making change and impact, and I'm building teams that I'm making them resilient, and I'm being a leader, especially during this freaking COVID crisis. I'm able to shine and be a light, not only to school districts and my clients, but my team members and everyone around me. So again, I keep going back to B because everything she says just like hits with me. But I catch myself right now going to a side of fear. Fear, I'm going to lose it all. How am I going to get more clients? What am I going to do? And I've been doing a ton of meditations, asking myself, okay, how can we get grounded to come up with a new game plan to grow the business again? Because the old way of doing business where I could in 2008, regardless of my struggles that you just heard of, you know, being young and uneducated and all that. Well, guess what? I have experience now, but I can't go knock on doors like I used to. I can't ask people out to lunch like I used to. I can't go to networking events like I used to. So all of those like negative thoughts and feelings were starting to take control of where I'm at today. And I felt ruining that. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And I said, okay, how can we make an impact? How can we get more business? How can we grow the business to get where you're at today, where you want to be, which I want to grow PSS as much as I can. That's my goal and dream. And so that's when the ideas came out. And I keep sharing this because so many of us just try one thing. It's like, no, be a little kid and throw every single thing you could ever imagine, the best ideas, the dumbest ideas, whatever, and try each one in threes that would work. And believe it or not, we have 82 local bonds. I'm going on the November ballot. I sent out binders. I made 10,000 little hand sanitizers. I made cards. I sent them all to school districts, just threw it all out there. And shockingly, those people took the time to open the card, open the binder, find my email and write me and say, thank you so much for that handwritten card. Thank you so much for the hand sanitizer. Thank you so much for spending that time making that packet for my district and wishing our local bond's gonna pass. And that like lit a spark in me is, yes, even though I have these barriers again right now in this year of 2020, which we all know besides work, it's personal life going on. Those things in 2008 had taught me how to get through this season, I'm going to call it, and be able to bring business in and manifest what I want and manifest what my focus is trying to be for 2020. You know, part of manifesting things in your business is, I feel 2020 is happening for a lot of reasons. It's getting our vision focused, and we had so much clutter going on in our lives before 2020. And maybe it's really making us think, why am I really wanting to do this? The business, the industry I'm in. And I know all of you must be passionate about this industry that you're in, because you wouldn't be trying to sell your service or product to clients and keeping in it regardless of COVID. You're still be like, nope, I want to make an impact and difference with my company, doing this for our clients. And so it gets rid of all of that. Or maybe you have a change of heart now. You're like, you know what? Why am I in this industry? Why am I selling this service or product? I need to shift now. Like, life is too short after experiencing 2020. So with that story, I mean, probably could write a book about it, but I just want everyone to take away that never stop trying over and over when you're passionate about something, because in the end, if you keep trying things that aren't working and are working, it's going to get you to this end result that you want. And again, I'm at this dream, I call it, that I get scared every day of losing, and maybe you can tell me why I'm so fearful of losing this dream that I've built. But that's how I've been able to move on with everything.
Wow. I've known you since the beginning, and I still get chills every time I hear the story, because it's amazing what you have done from nothing. And Jesse just put out and she's a mom on top of all that.
A new one. Yeah.
A new mom on top of all that. So again, thank you for the message, for the story. I think it's something, again, we can all relate to. First is to find that relationship, and second, to find out where we go from there. So thank you so much for your message. Jason, you got a hard act to follow here. You're gonna have to follow that one.
I sure do. I appreciate it, Natasha. Thank you so much. That was very inspirational. And thanks again for having me. My name is Jason Seward. I am an independent adjuster that works with a company called Sedgwick, and I'm the CEO and the owner / founder of a company called Drone Strategic Partners, in which we consult and become ambassadors in the drone technology field. In other words, we help businesses and sometimes people integrate drone technology into their business fold, and the most efficient and effective ways to do that. So a little bit about myself. I come from a very, very fortunate background. My parents busted their butts, put me through private school. I was fortunate enough to go to an Ivy League school, play sports, and graduate in one piece. So I did what everyone else did around me. I jumped in, got a job. The job for me was in the insurance industry, like I said, and I've been in the industry ever since. 22 years of various claims adjusting experience, everything from commercial property to auto liability, injury stuff, workers' comp, and everything in between. So for years, I felt unfulfilled. I felt as if the corporate job and the arena wasn't enough for me. I felt very unmotivated, you know, and it's like B said earlier, although I wasn't directly in business development, you're always developing relationships with people, and you're always selling yourself at the end of the day, right? So after 6 years of working for a company, I quit my job, threw away a perfectly good compensation package with benefits, company car, a pension, if you can believe that. They still have those. 401k, the whole thing. I was 28 years old, 29 years old. And like I said, I just had this restlessness and this feeling of unsatisfaction. So speaking of controversial but informative people, I started reading books by Robert Kiyosaki, and learned my place in the world, in the corporate world. Learned the difference between being an employee and a self-employed person and an investor, and business owner, and all of those types of things. Trying to figure out where I was going to chart my course, and finally, when it was all said and done, I ended up right back in corporate America, doing exactly what I was doing before. And now I just did it harder. I worked harder. I don't know if any of you have ever lost a parent, but I lost my father in 2011. So that became a line of discernment for me, from doing boyhood things and childhood things and to becoming a man. And so I just worked harder. But I never answered the questions for myself as to why I was doing this. What value did it bring? Am I happy? Do I enjoy doing this? And the vast majority of all of those answers was no. I didn't feel I had an impact. I didn't feel that I was happy. Sure, I made a little bit more money because I worked harder, but at the end of the day, the amount of hours that I was putting in was negatively impacting my physical, emotional, spiritual well-being. So I say all of that to say, right now, it feels like we're kind of back to square one. Natasha said it. We all have the situation that we have to deal with, right? There's no running from this. Change is inevitable here, and it's here, right? And so what do we do to take what we have and go ultimately where we want to be? And mindset, I hate to beat a dead horse, but mindset is everything. Attitude, everything. For myself, I don't have any excuse in the pandemic. I have no wife, no kids, right? And so for me, I have this grand isolation paradise and this big old opportunity to start creating things for myself. Literally wipe the slate clean, figure out exactly where I am at, and start writing things down, like Natasha said. Everything. I mean, ideas for businesses. I mean, I came up with 50 different business ideas. Maybe I'll pursue them, maybe I won't. How to expand my own businesses, right? How do we do more drone work? How do we expand and get into new markets and fields and get new clients, right? The same questions that everyone else has. I'll throw a few points at you that I think are helpful. Number one, I think it's important that we take care of ourselves. And what do I mean by that? The obvious, right? The physical, we need to exercise and do all of those things, right? It creates a balance, right? That was stated before. It creates a type of good balance between an emotional and physical well-being and all of that stuff. But in addition to that, I mean, take care of ourselves. I mean, become our biggest fans, our biggest supporters. And how do we do that? Well, I'm the type of person, I just happen to see the glass half full every situation. And I get to that place because everything I see around me is just positive. And so, well, how do we do this, right? How do we stay positive? How do we stay passionate? How do we inspire in times like this? Well, I do simple things for myself every day. I write a list of, when I wake up every day, I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for. It can be anything. Most likely, leading the list is being thankful for being alive, right? Like I'm thankful for breathing. A lot of people didn't do that this morning, right? And so you ground yourself, or I ground myself in this every day in this process of reminding myself everything that I love, everything that is beneficial for me, everything that I'm grateful for, the house that I live in, the car. I still have a job. You know, there are millions of people that don't, right? And I bring myself to that level because once you come out of that, it's all positive, right? I literally see the roses. I hear things better. And along with this, to bring it back to a business development standpoint, you see possibilities in places that you couldn't see. You see, instead of a negative outcome, you see the positive for yourself. Instead of it's slow and thinking about the negative impacts of what that might mean for your revenue and so on and so forth, it does present us with extra time, like Joe said earlier. We have so much more time now than we ever had. And so now the question is well, what do we do with that time? I promote self-investment over everything else. The better people that we become, the better able that we are able to deal with these things, the more creative we become. And ultimately, and I think this is the most important thing to kind of wrap things up, we believe in ourselves more than anyone else. And I just think that that is important to state, because we get into this negative cycle where it's very easy to see the downside. It's very easy to see the negative. It's very easy, especially when it's on the news and it's in your face and people are confrontational. It's very easy, you know. So you have to take these steps for yourself, even if it means waking up an hour or two early every day to put this time in for yourself. You know, those of you that have kids, I know that's extra challenging, but it's that time invested in yourself, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes a day, is infinitely impactful for your day to day. So I would say be grateful to the extent that we all can. I would say to invest in yourself, and that leads to taking more control of your environment and feeling good about where you're at. And I think that is the beneficial key to all of this. And whether you're a business owner or you're in BD, you've got to have this particular positive outlook. Otherwise, we're swimming upstream. So I appreciate it, and I will turn it back over.
Wow. Again, I put you up to the challenge, and I think you might have, I'll say you matched Natasha's story. That was fantastic. And I think what I love about all these stories and what we're sharing with you today, and again, we practiced this, we talked about it ahead of time. Even still, I'm learning something new every time I hear each of these people speak. But there's something we can all relate to in each of those stories. There's something that we can take away in each of the stories. So it's the intangible, is the feeling that we have that we can relate to it. And the tangible is what kind of pieces can we take from that. So I appreciate everything you guys have shared with us, Jason and Natasha. B, do you have some closing remarks and some closing statements for us, and trying to bring together both the tangible and intangible aspect of it all?
Sure. I didn't know quite. I knew a little bit about Natasha and Jason before we started this, but I can't express how interesting it is to kind of wind up on a panel with these two people speaking from sort of the high end of being out of the zone of tolerance, of reaching out to like a breaking point, Natasha. And I have been in a very similar car talk with myself to kind of being at that other point, Jason, and feeling like suddenly you're waking up and you're like, wait a minute, how do I feel though? What do I want to do about this feeling? And I'm really curious from everyone listening what resonated for you, but Natasha and Jason both gave such good advice. I wanted to leave you all with this list, which you'll get a copy of. I don't want you to feel like you need to read everything on this slide, but both of you talked about these specific strategies that you use for yourselves to kind of get back into that balance. And I mean, it's like you got these bullet points ahead of time. It's amazing. So this idea, Jason, of investing in yourself, trying each little idea. Natasha said, I tried it one by one by one. Moving back toward that locus of control means making small decisions and acting on them to remind yourself you're in charge. So if what you can do is send out thank you notes to people and hand sanitizer, that's what you do. If that's the thing you can control today, is to be kind to other people, what a great action to have control over. I also really, really resonate with Jason, you talking about listing things you're grateful for. That is a super powerful thing that we can do to reflect on what we can control, what we can't control, and what went well in a day, what you're happy about and grateful for, and the part that you played in bringing it around. That's a great way to remind yourself that there are positive outcomes because of the actions you take. And just journaling in general, what stories are you telling yourself about how you got where you are? How are you making sense of the things that happened to you in life? A few of the other things, Natasha, you really hit the nail on the head here. This idea of like, okay, but nobody like me has ever done anything like this. Is that terrifying, or is that a tremendous opportunity to step into the unknown? And Jason, especially, this idea that it's not all or nothing. You're going to take it one step at a time. And if there's downtime, I'll invest. Most situations happen through a series of small steps, not big plunges into the unknown. It just feels very unknown. We heard it all the way at the beginning when Dr. Dispenza was speaking, but also from Natasha and Jason, both, this idea of planning ahead, but knowing it's going to change. One thing that you can do to help with that, and actually maybe at that upcoming workshop, the BD strategy, that would be a great place to practice this if you go to it. But imagine yourself moving ahead with the plans you've made. Think about how you're going to feel. Imagine when it goes well. Imagine that it doesn't go well. Rehearse that feeling in your head and get your body used to how you might react if it's a yay or if it's a nay. And just keep that new input coming your way. So Kari and I have talked about some of the things I do. I don't know, Kari, did you want to talk about the 2020?
I'll give a story. So 2020, this is something that, again, B shared with our entire company one time, and just kind of brought us, when we first went to, Zoom, I'll call it Zoom heaven. A lot of people were freaking out. There was a lot of anxiety going on and things like that, but we didn't know what was going on. And B did a great presentation, talked about 2020. Do you mind if I steal your thunder on it?
Go for it. Right, it's your thunder now.
So essentially, every 2 hours, get away from the computer. Put it in your calendar. Actually, put it into your calendar. Every 2 hours, get away from that computer, get away from that screen. And for 20 minutes, do something different, preferably outdoors, but do something where you're looking away from the computer screen. And the last 20 means do it 20 feet away. So see something and visualize something 20 feet away from you. Ideally, you're walking outside and you're looking at a tree outdoors, or a squirrel playing, or something, or a hummingbird, something that gets you away from the computer. It changed my entire life from Zoom heaven to Zoom super heaven, I'll call it. And I actually did this with my daughter just the other day. She's 9 years old, doing the online learning, distance learning. And I could just see in her eyes that she was Zoom fatigued. I could see it very, very clearly. And so it was her recess time. So they got off the computer for a while. I just said, honey, let's go take a walk. And we walked outside and we talked and we had a great conversation. The 20 minutes went by quickly. She got back in, but I could tell, again, as a parent, most of you know, when you see it in your child's eyes, the difference between when they're happy and when they're not, it's night and day. And she went on with the rest of the day with just the greatest spirits and attitude about getting online. So 2020, if you don't remember anything from this, that's the tangible piece that you can take back and focus on what's happening right now. I'm going to kind of segue a little bit from what I just heard from all those presentations. A lot of it was focused on staying present. And again, this is somewhat intangible, but it's turning into the tangible aspects of what you do after you stay present. So the past is something that happened. We need to get a little bit away from that. Focus on where you are in the present. Do your breathing. Stop. I call it stop, drop, and roll. But B says stop and focus on what's happening. Focus on your breathing. Notice your environment around you. So that's what's happening with the 2020 is you're actually getting present, because once that clarity happens, and this is the aha moment for this presentation, that's when you can manifest your future. You can't do it while you're clouded. You can't do it while you're thinking about the past. You can only do it when you get present, focus on your present, and then focus on the future as well. So that's my piece that came out of this entire presentation. Again, I thank BD Guild for helping me to present this, because it's something that I have a hard time communicating. It takes some vulnerability to go through this. Natasha, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing some of your story in those aspects. But it's something I know without a doubt in my mind that we're all going through. And I want to make sure that we all are experiencing that and understanding what's happening so that we can actually get ourselves in a place where we can actually manifest our future. B, did you want to go over a couple of the last little topics here?
Sure. I think most of the points on here are self-explanatory, and just remember all of this is founded in research. So when Natasha, when you say you meditate, that is actually great. It's really been shown that 10 to 15 minutes of mindfulness or meditation a day, 1 or 2 times a day, really changes our brainwave activity into a less aroused, more balanced state. And just remember, if it helps, nobody remembers what you wore last week. People have done studies on it. Nobody remembers but you. It's going to be okay. The one I'll explain because it's not explained on the slide is this. Jason, it sounds like you and I sometimes have a similar mindset, which is put it all in perspective. So this is how I, as an anthropologist, put it in perspective. But if you hold out your arm, your very own arm, and you look at your shoulder, and you think of your shoulder as the beginning of the universe, and you move all the way down your arm, past your elbow to your wrist. When you get to your wrist, you've hit life on Earth. There was a lot of time before life on Earth even started. And if you go through your hand, you go all the way up, not to your fingernail, but to the part of your fingernail that you would trim off if you were going to trim your fingernails tomorrow, that's how long people have been around. The leading edge of your fingernail that you're going to trim off tomorrow morning is about as long as all of us have been scooting around as a species on planet Earth. And when you put it all in perspective, the age of the beautiful universe and our beautiful planet, it's okay if you have an off day. It's okay if life doesn't go perfectly for a week. It's a very brief moment in time, and we're gonna march forward. So have a good laugh, get outside, do some breathing, and keep it all in perspective. Yeah, I just want to echo what Kari said too. Natasha and Jason, thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing some deep parts of your life, because that it really does shape how we make sense of what's happening to us.
Definitely.
You're welcome.
I have a couple quick questions.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Joe, you know me, you're gonna have to cut me off because I love talking about this stuff. Quick question for Jason. You talk about self-promotion, and there's a common theme for all of us about self-promotion. And you also talk about being grateful. Can you give an example of how you do it yourself, or how you get others to get positive in such a negative environment?
Well, I see, it's a good question. I see that as my duty as a leader. So, you know, there's the business side of me, right? And then there's the corporate side, but I've kind of blurred all those lines and just make it one, right? And just kind of chart my own path. So in the process of that, it's my job to know my people, to know what makes them tick, to provide those nuggets of encouragement, or, hey, it's not as bad as you think it is. I've been saying that all year. This isn't as bad as you think it is. This is a blessing in disguise. You know, think about how much stronger you are this year, you know, as opposed to last year. Or, you know, the version of yourself that gets the job done now would kick the crap out of your old self. Why? Because we have to, right? I mean, we have to be better. We have to adapt. I mean, otherwise we're going to get washed away, right? So starting with myself, right, and keeping myself in a good, positive space, then I'm able to carry that forward, pay it forward, so to speak. And so when I talk about the gratitude list, I'm diligent about it, as much as one would be diligent about making themselves work out. You know, every morning, get that out of the space and literally watch the good things happen during the day, as opposed to when I don't do it or I get out of that. Now, glass half empty, which is less inspiring. I can't pay as much forward. I can't help as much. So long-winded, that's how I go about it.
All right, thank you. Can I keep going, Joe, or you want to take it over?
No, I keep going. You know, this is, again, I just want to say, we're not done yet, but thanks to everybody, and thanks for bringing your games to this. I think I've had a number of conversations, you know, being as a, you know, small business owner and such. What's the first thing that I wake up with? It's usually a thought of kind of anxiety, right? Just in terms of on the business side, not necessarily the personal side, but business side. And there's more control. I feel much more control once I'm up and around, once I get up and going, you know, once I'm kind of in the day. But to start off that day, Jason, that's just terrific advice. I mean, I'm already envisioning what I can be doing, what I haven't been doing, and I have the time to do in the morning. So.
And you know,
yeah.
Go ahead, Jason, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thanks. And I won't take all the credit. I am a big Rhonda Byrne fan. I'm a huge law of attraction proponent. And a lot of what I do comes right out of her book, The Magic. And that's I think chapter 1 or 2 right out of the gates to start a gratitude list for yourself. And it just builds a nice momentum that you can really feel it. You will, I guarantee if you do it for 2 to 4 weeks, you will look back at where you were a month ago mentally, and you'll laugh at yourself in a good way.
And I know we're wrapping up quick, so maybe real quickly, Natasha, I know you to be one of the most organized people I've ever met in my life. It's amazing to see all your charts and your lists. And you had a little blog the other day that talked about how you write everything down. However, you're human. So when you hit a roadblock, what's the first thing you do? Just kind of share with everyone out there. When you hit that roadblock that says, oh no, I messed up, or I need to change, or this is an emergency, a fire has been thrown at you. What's the first thing you do to turn that around?
The first thing I do is tell myself to calm down, because in the past, when I've reacted to roadblocks with the fight or flight mode, I literally add more fuel to the fire, and it made it 10 times worse. So thank God I had a lot of fires back then, because now it teaches me to, if I screwed up and hit a roadblock, I'm like, you know what, give myself grace. Like, it's okay. We're going to move on from this. And then sometimes there's roadblocks that are out of our control. I'm just going to be honest here. I'm very transparent, and I love transparency and being vulnerable, because that's the only way I connect with people. Last Friday, my company got kicked off a project because one of my employees did something wrong. That was very hard. I literally cried because I worked so hard to win that client. And I kept wanting to do something about it. And this voice came in and said, you have to let this go. Write a card apologizing, but just let it go after that. So when I hit roadblocks, I really start to calm myself down, get centered. I pray about things all the time. And I'm like, all right, what do I need to do in this situation? And I try to hear that voice, and then I take action on that. And that's something that happened last Friday that I had to, took me 3 days to today to really be at peace with it and understand I'm human and my team's human, and how do I work from this?
Again, the whole is great. And another example of how, as long as you're going back in the past and reflecting on how things went wrong, you have no space to think about your future. You have no space to manifest the business future that we've been talking about all day. So that's a great advice. If you hit that roadblock, calm down, do what you can do. You wrote a card, you said, I apologize.
That's all I could do. That's all I could do. And the lessons learned.
Right.
Yes.
And again, I think we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I just want to remind everyone, as business development, we are the cheerleaders. We are the ones guiding the future. Oftentimes, operations side of the house, they're so focused on the project and what's happening right here in this space here, they forget to look up and look for the future. And that's where we come in. We have to be able to be in a space where we can not only see the future, but also encourage others in how to get there. So this is kind of the thesis of everything we were just talking about. V, thank you very much. Natasha, thank you very much. Jason, thank you very much. And Joe, thank you for BD Guild, because you're not just developing business development leaders, we're developing people. And as people, as a group, we can always come together and solve problems together. And that's what's joyous about this aspect. So thank you for the space and environment to speak in this type of manner and to speak in this vulnerable space. And everybody, hopefully you came away from something that can lead you to your future business.
I agree, absolutely. I know, Kari, I think you were on a schedule, but if there are anybody that wants to get up on the screen or maybe ask a question, if people have a couple of minutes, I know there's been some good chat, in the chat box, kind of ongoing throughout the conversation. If there's anybody that want to raise their hand and ask a question, maybe. Don't have to, but.
Can I comment on a chat we got?
Please.
So Tanya, I think or Dina said she's been getting up about every 5 minutes or so, not really enough of a break. I want to tie that to something Natasha said. So Natasha said sometimes you can get into fight or flight mode. There's a third mode there that's freeze, and that's that bottom of that window. If you think of fight or flight as the top of that window of tolerance, freeze is that bottom. And when we are sitting for long periods of time, holding very still, our body gets the message that we're frozen. And really, honestly, your physicality has a lot to do with the mood you're in. Getting up and moving is a way to remind your body there's nothing to hide from. This is business as usual. Don't worry about it. So yeah, definitely get up and move, because physically leads to mentally, mentally leads to physically. It works both ways.
And I have a comment from Elise. Thank you, Elise, for joining us. It just said, what a wonderful way to end the day. And I agree with that. It's just, even having this conversation, seeing these faces, having the space to speak this way, I think it's a fantastic way to end the day. So thank you, Elise, for that, even though I think she's jumped off, but thank you.
You know, one of the things too is when we were preparing for the call, and actually when the Southern California group got together, is like, you know, we talk about some of these conceptual high, you know, 30,000 foot view things, but also want to bring some tangible things and out of these. And I can just say for myself that I have anywhere from 5 to 10 tangible things I kind of have to put, you know, corral myself and kind of be efficient with. But so with that, I want to say thanks to the panel, because it kind of gave me some walkaways that I can start using immediately.
You're welcome.
I am willing. I know we had an initial fun 30 minutes prior to the meeting. A few of us, if people want to stick around and continue the conversation. I know that there's some folks that are on a schedule that got to leave, but I'm be happy to kind of hang out as well if anybody wants to. But we don't have to. But if they do, just let us know. But let me just do one final round of applause